first the speakers, and then maybe you can.
Saluda, sí, pues sí. ¿Nos sentamos?
Sí.
Alguien quiere empezar en el sentido que lo que voy a decir lo traduzca al inglés.
Yo me voy a ir
Tú nos vas presentando tu idea. En español.
Bueno, hola, buenas tardes a todos. En primer lugar, agradeceros la asistencia a este Congreso internacional Ciencia y Fe con motivo del centenario de Stanley Jaki. Ahora mismo voy a hablar también en inglés para que me podáis entender los que habéis podido asistir a este congreso. We are here today to celebrate the International Congress on Science and Faith in Stanley Jaki. Stanley Jaki was a scientist and was a priest, and he wrote many books about the relationship between science and faith. He was one of the most important historians of science of these last years. Okay. And, why are we doing this in our university? Because in 2009, this priest, he was really very sick when he was in Rome, and despite the situation, he decided to come to Madrid to give conferences here in our university. And even though his life was in risk, he decided to come because if it was the will of God, he decided to be here. So this is like a demonstration to tell us how important it was for him, our country, our city, our university, the relationship between science and faith, and this was his will. So here we are today. I have to be very grateful for the effort that also my students have done to come here today, and all the professors from different countries all over the European and also United States to come. It's a very long journey, and of course to the authorities that they are here today. So thank you very much. So please, now I'm going to introduce Professor Elliot that is going to say words for you.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias, Lucía. Hace tiempo que Lucía Guerra me habló de la posibilidad de este congreso para celebrar el centenario del nacimiento de Stanley Jaki, y me pareció una excelente noticia. Me parecía que la ocasión lo merecía, que era una oportunidad extraordinaria de hacer memoria de su pensamiento, de todos sus trabajos de investigación sobre un tema que creo de la máxima, no ya actualidad, sino de la máxima urgencia. Eso estoy muy feliz de estar aquí, de compartir estos minutos, porque desgraciadamente tengo que marchar a Madrid, tengo un compromiso ineludible, pero no quería dejar de aquí aprovechar estos minutos para agradecer la celebración del Congreso, desde luego la celebración celebrar también que los organizadores me den esta oportunidad. Y decía hace un momento que me parecía de una extraordinaria urgencia porque pensando precisamente en el diálogo más cosmológico que escribió Platón, que es el Timeo, Platón señalaba en ese diálogo que entre dos puntos necesariamente tenía que haber un tercero que los uniese. Y en este sentido, entre los dos lenguajes, las dos lenguas en que habla también la razón.
I'm going to translate, yes.
Okay.
First of all, Professor Elio feels very grateful for the opportunity to take place this international congress that he has known about from a long time ago. And he's just mentioned that, Platon was an important philosopher. As you know, that he was saying that between 2 points they communicate, and science and religion. I want to say that there is communication, wasn't it, Elio?
Bien, y como decía, tenemos dos formas de expresar la realidad. Una que puede ser el lenguaje teológico, el lenguaje de la fe. Aquí habría que decir que el lenguaje de la fe, el lenguaje teológico, para nosotros no es un lenguaje irracional, sino que es un lenguaje suprarracional, pero a su vez lleno de racionalidad, lleno de logos.
We have two ways to transmit our faith, and this also needs the reason, and which is with plenty of logos.
Por otro lado, tenemos el lenguaje propio de la razón científica. El lenguaje científico, ese lenguaje rigurosamente matemático que surge con la modernidad, con la revolución científica, como bien sabemos todos, a partir de Copérnico, Galileo, etc.
On the other side, we have the scientific language that communicates us through the faith, through different scientists such as Copernico and Galileo, that relates our science and faith.
Pues bien, si yo he entendido bien la obra del profesor Jaki y en cierto modo cuál es la razón por la que estamos en este Congreso internacional, es precisamente para encontrar ese lenguaje intermedio, esa razón, en cierto modo unitiva, tanto de la razón teológica, teos logos. Recuerdo también en este sentido que la acuñación del término teología es platónica, no es de la Iglesia Católica, es platónica.
The term theology is Platonic, it's not from Catholic Church, it's Platon, it's philosophical.
Teología. Pues bien, se trata de encontrar ese lenguaje unificador, vinculante, que conecte el lenguaje, como decía, de la razón teológica, de la razón de la fe, con el lenguaje científico. Necesitamos una mediación que una ambas formas de logos, ambas formas de racionalidad.
We need an action, a joint action that kind of finds a relationship between the science and the faith, and they joined these two ways of reasonable thinking.
Mi certeza, mi absoluta certeza, es que en cierto modo el destino del logos, el destino de la razón, está vinculado, estrechamente vinculado a la posibilidad de encontrar este lenguaje capaz de unir, de generar una totalidad entre la razón teológica y la razón científica.
The end of these logos, the aim would be to find the finality, right? The finality between the science and the objective of the scientific aim.
Y es por eso que ahora se entiende mi alegría porque este congreso se pueda celebrar, esté celebrándose justamente en nuestra universidad, en la Universidad San Pablo C.
And this is the reason why I feel happy that this Congress is taking place at our university, San Pablo CEU.
Y también el privilegio que siento de poder estar en esta mesa, pudiendo decir estas palabras y saludando a todos ustedes.
And also the privilege that I feel saying these words and looking at you.
Por eso no hace falta decir que mi esperanza y que mi deseo es que este congreso tenga el mayor de los éxitos y continúe la impresionante labor realizada por Stanley Jaki.
This is why my wish would be that this would continue in the future and we could continue doing research around the works, through the works of Father Stanley Jaki.
Gracias a todos. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you to everybody. He has to leave, but we will keep in touch, yes? Seguimos en contacto. Gracias.
Gracias.
A mucho ánimo.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Buonasera. First of all, a cordial greeting from our rector, Professor Rosa Viseo Claverol, who cannot be here physically, but she would have liked, due to unscheduled issues and the agenda of our rector is very busy, as Professor Berhon he knows. Welcome to the University of San Paulo. We have two campuses. Here is the campus of Monte Príncipe, and Julián Romea is in Madrid. We are a university community in which students, professors and non-teaching staff share values and principles based on Christian humanism. We try to train good professionals from all our faculties of law, economics and humanities in Madrid. And here in Monte Príncipe, medicine, pharmacy and also the Polytechnic School. But in addition to training good professionals, we are committed to ensuring that our students are better people and transform the world into a better world. It is important for me to give some thanks. First of all, thank you very much, Professor Lucía Guerra, Professor Javier Castel. They are professors here at the university, Professor of Medicine, Professor of Pharmacy, and also Professor Fernando Lostal. He is the director of the Cardinal Ángel Ayala Foundation, and they have prepared an excellent program with dedication, affection, and a lot of time. Thank you very much, Javier. Thank you, Lucia. Thanks so much also to the European University of Rome, represented here by its rector. Thank you, Professor Pedro Barrajón. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And, of course, thank you very much to all Spanish professors, but, of course, professors coming from the United States, Hungary, Italy, who will enlighten us and improve our knowledge about the legacy of the Benedictine priest, historian and Hungarian philosopher Stanley Jaki. His legacy is very important for all of us. And, of course, thank you to all attendees, who I am sure they will be transmitters of what they learned and update on this historic figure in these 2 days. Regarding the program, we are celebrating the centenary of the birth of Stanley Jaki, and what better occasion to review from Aristotle to artificial intelligence all the aspects related to moral compass, principles of Christian humanism that we need so much in a world, in a special bad world. It's a world vulnerable, uncertain, noisy, ambiguous, anxious and interconnected. We are in a university whose mission is to generate knowledge, transmit knowledge, and of course to apply that knowledge. I am convinced that the testimonies, master classes that will be here today in Monte Príncipe and tomorrow at Julián Romea will be a demonstration of scientifically true, ethically good, and aesthetically beautiful knowledge. A request, a final favor, I will appreciate the following Santiago Ramón y Cajal, our Nobel Prize of Medicine, who said that what is not written does not exist. So please follow this advice and write up some written minutes of these conferences. Welcome to the university. Thank you for coming. Enjoy the Congress.
Well, I just want to say a few words about our Congress. One of the fundamental aspects of Father Jaki's work was his historical study of the origins of the modern science. Through extensive research, he emphasized that science did not emerge in isolation, but within a specific cultural and intellectual context. Jaki highlighted that the Christian worldview, based on the belief in a rational creator, was essential for developing science that seeks consistent and observable laws in nature. According to him, the belief in an ordered cosmos provided the philosophical basis that made scientific advance possible, and in addition, civilizations where cyclical views of time of pantheistic concepts prevailed, scientific progress that was limited due to the lack of framework that encouraged systematic investigation and the search of the universal law. In conclusion, on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to thank you for your presence and participation. So just trust that this Congress will be a source of inspiration and learning, and that together we can continue the dialogue that Stanley Jaki championed throughout his life. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Not to make things too long, I will simply welcome you in Madrid. Hope you have a fantastic stay. Especially welcome students and thank them for coming to this meeting, which I suppose is going to be very interesting for you. I am here because I am the coordinator of a group we have in this university, which is called Science and Faith. But our group is mainly made of or constituted by scientists. So we do not have so much the philosophical and theological parts. So for us, it's going to be very interesting today. And also, I am here because I'm a member of the cultural foundation we have in CEU, which has the name of our founder, Ángel Herrera Oria, later Cardenal Herrera, and with which we try to disseminate Christian culture. And one of the best interests of this foundation is science and faith. So for us, when Lucia told me about her idea of doing this meeting, I received that with enthusiasm. And of course, we are going to try that everything goes very well these 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, time for work. And we have the first session, is an introductory session. And it's my pleasure to introduce the first speaker, Professor Rafael Pascual, from Science and Faith Institute, Pontificia Atheneum Regina Apostolorum, Rome, Italy. And the title of his talk, The Cosmological, Epistemological and Metaphysical Assumption of Science in Professor Stanley Jaki. Please, go ahead.
Buenas tardes. Buon pomeriggio, good afternoon. I am sorry I cannot speak in English and I will speak in Spanish. It is not my possibility to do in English, so I am sorry. I will try to explain.
This is the first presentation, the first lecturer. This only first lecture is the only one that's going to take place in Spanish. And I will try to translate the main ideas of the topic.
Sí. Como se dijo, el título de mi conferencia quiere presentar un poco cuáles son las bases del pensamiento del padre Stanley Jaki desde un punto de vista más bien filosófico. Se ha subrayado sobre el papel de la filosofía en el pensamiento del padre Jaki.
We want to translate more the basis about the philosophical point of view about the thoughts of this professor, Father Jaki.
Estamos celebrando el centenario de su nacimiento y
several years ago.
Allí en Roma yo soy profesor de filosofía de la ciencia y filosofía de la naturaleza. Y también dirijo un programa sobre ciencia y fe. Entonces llegó a mis manos un libro, este libro, que presentaba diversos artículos de padre Stanley Jaki. Y fue mi primer contacto con este autor que enseguida me llamó mucho la atención.
I've been the director of the Science and Faith Institute in Italy, in Rome, and suddenly this book came into my hands and, kept my attention, right?
Y presenta una serie de conferencias, de artículos que publicó el padre Stanley Jaki hace algunos años sobre diversos temas que ofrecen un panorama de las diversas perspectivas, los diversos argumentos que él ha ido desarrollando a lo largo de su vida.
In these books represents many of his thoughts and arguments that he has been defending throughout his life.
Y hay otro libro, que es el que me voy a centrar, en el que el mismo padre Stanley Jaki decía que presentaba lo que era su filosofía de la ciencia.
There is another book that this is what was focused Father Jaki that represents the philosophy of science.
El libro en inglés se llama Means to Message y ha sido traducido ya al italiano, todavía no existe en español.
Means to Message is the title, and we have Italian translation, but we don't have the Spanish translation yet.
Voy a tratar de presentar un poco los elementos más importantes de este libro que ofrecen un hilo conductor del pensamiento de Padre Jaki.
I'm going to try to synthesize the most important things about it.
El Padre Jaki, como saben, se dedicó mucho al tema de la historia de la ciencia,
Father Jaki dedicated out of his life in history of the science.
pero detrás también hay una filosofía de fondo que es la que inspira su pensamiento.
But behind there is a philosophy that inspired his thoughts.
Y precisamente en este libro presenta cuáles son esas columnas de su pensamiento desde el punto de vista filosófico.
And precisely in these books we can find the basis of his philosophical thoughts.
Llama la atención el título del libro, Means to Message.
It surprises the title, Means to Message.
Y precisamente el Padre Jaki habla de la importancia que tiene el modo de comunicar, incluso la misma ciencia.
And, it's also surprising the way that he has to communicate the science.
Y para ello presenta el tema fundamental de la verdad, la cuestión de la verdad.
And for him, the most important thing is the truth, and to discover this truth and communicate it.
Desde esa perspectiva hace una reflexión crítica respecto a la filosofía moderna, pero también respecto a la ciencia contemporánea.
From these perspectives, he tries to do a critique from the contemporary thoughts.
Y en primer lugar, lo que nos ofrece es que la verdadera filosofía se tiene que centrar en el estudio de la realidad.
The first philosophy has to be focused in the study of the reality.
Y por eso una de las líneas maestras del pensamiento del Padre Jaki es precisamente la cuestión del llamado realismo.
This is the reason why one of the main bases of his thoughts is the realism.
El filosofar para Padre Jaki no es simplemente especular, sino entrar en contacto con la realidad.
To do philosophy is not is a speculation, it's try to get closer to the truth.
Y dentro de la realidad tenemos tres aspectos que él subraya, que son la cuestión de la verdad, de la bondad y de la belleza.
In this reality there are three very important bases: the truth, the beauty, and the good.
Y tenemos que respetar la complejidad de la realidad y no caer en una especie de simplificación o de reduccionismo.
We cannot try to reduce this, right? To become to the reduce things that they are really important.
Y entonces, por eso el padre Jaki subraya que es necesario que en la misma ciencia se siga una sana filosofía de fondo.
This is the reason why it's very important that from philosophy has to be a healthy philosophy.
Y hace una presentación histórica de cómo la ciencia moderna, de alguna manera, afectó, influyó también en el pensamiento filosófico.
And he has that reflection of how these studies on philosophy are in relation with,
Con la filosofía.
With the philosophy itself.
Por ejemplo, el mismo Descartes, René Descartes, trató de fundar su modelo filosófico a partir de la nueva ciencia que estaba surgiendo entonces.
This is why Descartes tried to develop his own model with the philosophy of design in that moment.
Y así podemos verlo también en otros filósofos modernos como Immanuel Kant.
And this we can see in other modern philosophers as Immanuel Kant.
Pero hay una diferencia fundamental entre la visión de la ciencia y la visión de la filosofía.
It's an important difference between the vision of the science and the vision of the philosophy.
El padre Jaki subraya casi de modo constante cómo la ciencia se fundamenta sobre todo en la matemática, en aquello que es medible. El campo de la ciencia es lo que es cuantificable, lo que es medible.
Father Jaki defends what is quantities, mathematical, measurable, and this is what he tries to defend.
En cambio, la filosofía no puede reducirse a lo cuantitativo, sino que tiene que ver precisamente esa complejidad de lo real.
But philosophy, you cannot really reduce it to maths. You have to compare it with the reality.
La filosofía tiene como objetivo principal la búsqueda de la verdad.
The philosophy has for main objective the search of the truth.
Pero a veces como que este objetivo se pierde de vista.
But sometimes this objective is completely lost.
El padre Stanley Jaki, como veremos en las próximas conferencias, tuvo que confrontarse con un contexto de carácter positivista.
Father Jaki, after this, he had to fight or defend against the positivism.
Y por otra parte, otro de las corrientes influyentes en el pensamiento moderno con las que se confronta el padre Jaki es la del idealismo.
Another philosophical current that Father Jaki deals with is the idealism.
Dentro de este contexto vemos cómo el padre Stanley Jaki subraya la importancia del principio de causalidad.
In this context, Father Jaki highlights the principle of causality.
Que es un principio que es importante tanto para la ciencia como para la filosofía.
Which is important as for the philosophy and for the science.
Aquí encontramos ya el riesgo de un cierto reduccionismo en la ciencia, en el modo de considerar este principio de causalidad.
Here we can find a risk of the beginning of reductionism of the causality.
Más aún en el contexto de la física cuántica, incluso el principio de causalidad es puesto en tela de juicio.
Moreover, the physical quantity it's get in
The quantum theory.
In quantum theory.
Se pone en discusión el principio de causalidad. Y en cambio hay que tener en cuenta cómo este principio es necesario para la misma ciencia.
But we need to take into account that this principle is necessary for the science itself.
También el padre Jaki se pone en relación y hace un análisis crítico de la filosofía contemporánea, sobre todo la filosofía del lenguaje y de la semiótica.
Also, Father Jaki is aware of the philosophy of the language and the semiotic.
Poniendo en evidencia también los límites que tiene esta corriente.
Knowing the limits of this current.
Por otra parte, el padre Jaki está muy atento a las otras dimensiones que también tienen que ver con la investigación científica.
On the other side, Father Jaki is also very aware of other dimensions that they are in relation with the scientific files.
No hay que olvidar que la ciencia es realizada por los científicos, que son seres humanos,
We cannot forget that science is done by human beings.
y que los científicos, en cuanto seres humanos, son responsables de lo que hacen.
And scientists are responsible for what they are doing.
Y esto es un tema que creo que es muy importante para nuestro tiempo.
And this is a topic that I believe it's important nowadays.
Hoy en día están surgiendo nuevos retos que ya de alguna manera estaban surgiendo en tiempos de los estudios del padre Stanley Jaki.
Nowadays there are taking place challenges that they did happen in the past, but they still happen in the present.
Por ejemplo, todo el tema de la inteligencia artificial,
For example, artificial intelligence.
por no hablar de la cuestión de la tecnología aplicada a la biología, las biotecnologías.
And biotechnologies.
Y por lo tanto no se puede ignorar esta dimensión ética que tiene también la ciencia y que la ciencia tiene que respetar.
We cannot ignore this bioethical dimension.
Y por lo tanto es un aspecto que creo que es muy importante y muy necesario para nosotros que estamos participando en el Congreso, no olvidar esta dimensión ética.
We cannot forget about this ethical dimension.
Por lo cual podemos hablar de una ética de la ciencia, una ética del trabajo científico y también de la aplicación de la ciencia en el campo de la técnica y la tecnología.
This is the reason why we always should take into account the ethics in science, in the biotechnical field, and in all the backgrounds in the scientific field.
Bien, yo creo que básicamente lo fundamental es esto. Mi relación era más bien de carácter introductivo, presentar un poco los temas que se van a ir desarrollando a lo largo de este congreso y que van a ser presentados de modo mucho más desarrollado por nuestros relatores.
This is mainly what I wanted to share with you, and I'm happy to continue with the other lecturers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will have a question at the end of the three speakers. So it's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Professor Alex John, from Science and Fe Institute Director, Pontifical Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum in Rome, Italy, and the title of his talk, Philosophical and Scientific Explanation and Biologic, Intelligent Design Revisited. Please go ahead. Sí.
No diga los saludos. Good afternoon to you all, and I'm honored to be here to speak at this International Congress on the figure of Father Stanley Jaki. Thank you very much, Lucia, and to all the organizers here at the THEU. I think it's It's very interesting that the last time I was here in Spain, I did not speak any Spanish at all. That was 40 years ago. Now I'm here in Spain again, second time in my life. And I do speak some Spanish, but I'm going to speak in English. So please pardon me for those who my American English might be a little bit jarring for you. I don't pretend to be an expert on Father Stanley Jaki or his intellectual biography. I would simply like to focus on one specific theme, which for me presents his capacity for doing this penetrating analysis, his ability to distinguish without separating the discourses of science and philosophy and Christian theology, his ability to state simply and clearly what's at stake. The theme I speak of is what is known as intelligent design. Intelligent design, Father Jaki wrote a short essay, this one here, in 2005, entitled Intelligent Design ? In this booklet, Father Jaki unapologetically unmasks Darwin's ideological attempt to secularize the natural biological order, Darwin's not-so-secret design to refute the idea of special creation, and in also doing so to discredit all of biblical revelation. Indeed, the teaching of Darwin's theory of evolution in schools often conflates Darwin's scientific theory with Darwin's ideology of negating the appeal to a divine mind to explain anything in the universe. For those who are not familiar with the intelligent design movement in the United States, I'll just give us a very short review. The intelligent design movement is a social political reality which can be seen as a series of attempts to defeat materialism in society through legislation with regard to education. So the first wave of this movement consisted in trying to legislate a ban on teaching evolution in public schools. They were able to do that in 1920, but those bans in the United States were ruled as unconstitutional in 1968. So a second wave of this movement sought to require in science class to teach a balanced treatment of evolution and creation science. In particular, since evolution theory was taught as a science, it was thought that the science teachers should also teach an alternate scientific theory where the biological order could be resolved back to a creator. This attempt was largely uncovered as an attempt to introduce Christian fundamentalism into the classroom, and the December 2005 ruling Kitzmiller versus Dover sealed the political fate of intelligent design, saying that intelligent design is not a scientific theory, but a form of biblical creationism. Now, I think people could have saved a lot of legal fees if they had just read Father Jaki's book, which, in Chestertonian style, shows that intelligent design theory is, in fact, not an exact science, that intelligent design theory actually has less claim to be a science than Darwinian theory, that materialism and intelligent design theory are both science-coded ideologies, that intelligent design theory does not necessarily align with good Christian theology, and that culturally trying to promote a bad science, a bad philosophy, and a bad theology actually only gives materialism better food for self-righteous criticism. So this was in 2005. Why in 2024, 20 years later, why should we re-problematize this intelligent design debate? And I would suggest for a number of reasons. And that reason is that there's a third wave of intelligent design movement. Culturally, the strategy of the intelligent design research institutes has shifted. So no longer are they trying to advocate not teaching evolution in schools, they're not trying to teach intelligent design in schools. Actually, one of the institutes called the Discovery Institute, actually on its website says, we are trying to promote schools to teach evolution better. Teach evolution better. Actually, they think that they can actually influence culture better outside of the classroom than inside the classroom. That's the new strategy. They still think of it, intelligent design, as a scientific theory, and they have a lot of research money. They boast a lot of PhD scientists in their board. And academically, the intelligent design movement has also received some renewed vigor in the recent years. Let me just cite two publications in last year, 2023. William Dembski and Winston Ewart have published what they call the second greatly expanded edition of the book, The Design Inference, Eliminating Chance Through Small Probabilities. They call that a foundational book in intelligent design research. The argument of that book basically is that science, okay, again, we're using the word science a lot here, that science can detect design by employing new probabilistic resources. And the authors are clear that when they say design, they don't just mean the design of the universe, they mean the specific design of biological organisms. Then in another 2003 publication called God's Grandeur, The Catholic Case for Intelligent Design, the editor, Anne Gager, collects articles from 17 Catholic philosophers, theologians, and scientists, all on intelligent design as a scientific theory, which they support. What's new there is expressed by one of the authors who writes, "The view that God only acts in nature through natural laws is not the view of St. Thomas Aquinas or the Church." Okay, so they criticized basically the so-called theistic evolution. Theistic evolution is this idea that God created the natural world and he could work through evolution. There's no problem. Theistic evolution. They criticized that position, saying that it's a cheap accommodation to the Darwinist macroevolution theory. They don't look at the evidence, and therefore they're actually furthering Darwinist materialist ideology. It would also seem, too, that several issues have risen in the past few years where, if possible, a scientific design inference could be very useful as a tool. For example, AI chatbots, artificial intelligence chatbots. If we could analyze scientifically those responses, could we discover whether the response was from the design of the programmers, the design of the internet, the design of the fine-tuners, or maybe there's a super design. Maybe there's something more. Maybe the AI is actually intelligent. Intelligent design. No? Was COVID-19 virus, was it designed by nature or by human manipulation? What signatures would we have to look for? Could we scientifically discover that? What signatures would be sufficient to think that we could know about extraterrestrial life? What kind of design inference could we scientifically measure, if possible? Anyway, such issues seem to allow for a general method of design hypothesis inference. Why do intellectuals, this movement thinks, why do intellectuals that profess, especially Christian faith, seem very squeamish when you apply this to biological explanation? So my question here is that in the light of this new wave of the intellectual design movement, do Father Jaki's original judgments on intelligent design, do they still hold? You know? Do they need to be adjusted in any way? And basically, and I know that my time is limited, but I just want to say that Father Jaki basically, as I said, he thinks that intelligent design as a theory, as a scientific theory, is a bad scientific theory. It's a bad philosophy, it's a bad Christian theology, and a bad cultural idea. Okay. So first, intelligent design is a bad science. It's important to remember that intelligent design is promoted as a scientific theory. Scientific theory. As a scientific theory, it proposes that specific complexity in living things can be observed. Okay, that part is fine. Okay. That specific complexity in living things can be measured, okay, via information theory. The hypothesis that such complexity came about by chance is highly improbable, and that the alternate hypothesis, which is the design hypothesis, must then be rationally inferred. Okay. So, Father Jaki's response in this book is that this does not qualify intelligent design as an exact science. Okay. Exact sciences, they measure quantities, as Father Raphael said, they formulate laws, and thus they make predictions. This happens in modern physics and chemistry, and in a limited way in biology. Jaki says that the really quantifiable parts in Darwinism have not really been developed yet. Darwin's theory, as it stands today, is a gross simplification of an immensely complex mass of facts amidst the absence of of the transitional forms in the paleontological record. Still, in comparison to intelligent design theory, Jaki says that Darwinian theory is in principle a theory that can be evaluated quantitatively. That makes Darwinian theory, in terms of its scientific theory, it makes it superior to accounts such as vitalism or ID as intelligent design. Now, Jaki does not discount the possibility that probability logic might provide some reasons that something is not a result of pure choice, or pure chance, But if this is all that the intelligent design theorists want to ascertain, perhaps we can concede the point. Still, Jaki notes, pure randomness never actually occurs. All probability theories must assume some non-random, and therefore some specifically unchangeable factors. And this is the very thing that the ideology of Darwinism cannot concede. And we would add, and that's the very thing intelligent design is trying to prove, but you can't prove what you assume. Okay. What could we make of the new complex probability resources that the third wave of intelligent design talks about? And they mention things like Fisherian hypothesis testing or Bayesian probability analysis, Kolmogorov minimal length information calculations, for those who are interested. Okay. Are these not all measurements? They're all quantitative, and therefore they could convert intelligent design into an exact science? ? And does not Darwinian evolutionary theory also proceed probabilistically, as the very Ronald Fisher did back in 1930, and Jaki amazingly was aware of that work here. Fisher used probability analysis to show that slight random mutations could coalesce to actually push forward evolution. To this point, let us just say that when prediction is probabilistic, the best that you can do is to compare theories with one another, and to do that, you have to know what both hypotheses predict against the observables. So the focus must be that the design hypothesis has to have some positive predictive clout. It has to be testable. It can't just deny the opposite thesis. Okay. And that's the big problem. Furthermore, probabilistic methods cannot overcome the need to make a set of assumptions. What's the reference set of probabilities? How do you calculate prior probabilities? Supposedly subject matter experts should opine here, but at the end of the day, there's no getting around bias when you determine those assumptions. So second, intelligent design is also unsound as a philosophy. Fighting Darwinism as a materialistic philosophy, as an ideology, has to be done on a philosophical level, not on a scientific level. So if you want to defeat Darwin's materialism, which is basically that there is no intelligence whatsoever in our world, at least natural processes do not require a guiding intelligence, we need to follow metaphysical reasoning, starting with an observation of reality, as Father Raphael reminded us. You can reason your way back to a first necessary, creative, and intelligent cause. That's what Jaki does in this book. His argument is a kind of a mixture of Thomas Aquinas' third and fifth ways. He says that we observe in nature specific things. Anything that is specific, like it is this or that way, it's limited in its way of being. It cries out for a cause. If you just trace one specificity to another, as this is done in science, you cannot go on endlessly, or else you risk being caught in a regress to infinity, or the endless postponing of an answer. Hence the need to postulate an initial creation out of all, out of nothing. So this is metaphysical philosophical reasoning to a creator who creates ex nihilo. That's a philosophical inference out of the continuity of being. The poor philosophy of intelligent design is that they pretend to provide scientific proofs that a sudden rise of a new species is the result of a divine intervention. So not the creation of the universe, but a specific divine intervention for that species. It would be like a miracle. Right? It's a miracle. An appeal to the intervention of the first cause without the mediation of the secondary material causes. Now, if something really did appear suddenly, proving this would be the result. Proving this as a result of an intelligent intervention rather than some natural cause would require ruling out, at least on the scientific level, ruling out all natural explanations. A task that is practically impossible and theoretically fraught. In other words, it's trying to do a gaps in scientific, God of the gaps science about material things and processes. Father Jaki also criticizes the very use of the term intelligent design, for whenever you talk about design, there has to be intelligence. And whenever intelligence operates, it necessarily will operate with design as a result. So we already showed that the specificity of things shows forth the existence of a necessary first intelligent cause. But this does not justify that by observing the same design, you have to posit a separate intervention by God. As Jaki beautifully states, just as creation ex nihilo is to the conservation of all being, analogously, we can consider the design of the universe as to the particular designs that are applied by him. In other words, he's saying that theistic evolution, where God could operate by random mutations and natural selection to create new biological kinds, would be actually no surprise. So what should we make of the most recent philosophical justifications of the ID movement? One such strategy of theirs is to amplify the term intelligent design theory to include all appeals to intelligent cause, whether it be the first cause of the universe or to any special intervention. So this deliberate confusion of levels of discourse allows them to reason like this. Since we must philosophically admit first cause on a cosmic level, and God could intervene on a special level, like miracles, we should be open to the fact that He does intervene on this special level. Our response is to repeat with Father Jaki that we have to unravel the scientific from the philosophical. In short, the nut of Jaki's philosophical criticism of ID theory is that those who try to save purpose through science, Newtonian, Einsteinian, Darwinian or non-Darwinian, are barking up the wrong tree. Okay. We'll go quickly. So, intelligent design as questionable theology. Intelligent design is traditionally inspired by biblical concordism, especially in the reading of the book of Genesis, the first chapter of Genesis. Jaki, in this book, he refers to his other studies, trying to show that a literalist scientific reading of Genesis 1 is not founded. Basically, if you try to make Genesis 1 into science, you have to accept all of Genesis 1 as science, including the description of the firmament, the 24-hour days, and so on and so forth, that intelligent design theorists would not accept. Right? We also mentioned the new theological concordism. They were saying that, okay, maybe we don't have biblical concordism, but we have St. Thomas Aquinas to back us up, because he was probably an interventionist. Okay, but I think there we have to just remember what Jaki says in this book, and he says, I quote, "As to former Catholics and theologically inarticulate Catholics among promoters of intelligent design, they should think twice before they refer to Catholic doctrine. And if they do not want to wade positively into deep waters, they should at least take note of some negatives. One, there's no philosophical or theological ground that would impose the view that in purely biological processes, more is involved than physical and chemical action." Okay, so is there anything new on the theological side of ID theorists? Probably the only thing new is that they're frustrated at positions like Father Jaki's, the theistic evolutionists, as somehow accommodating to materialistic ideology. And I think there we just have to say that Father Jaki, basically at the end of the day, he says, real wisdom is not deciding between special intervention and theistic evolution. Okay, both in fact have a much greater problem to deal with, and that problem is the explanation of natural and moral evil in God's providence. So what Jaki suggests is that greater theological issue is what we should be trying to fight in a post-Christian culture. That's with the wisdom of the cross. So let me just conclude here. I had a section about ID as a bad education politics or cultural. I'll just skip that. Okay, I think I already mentioned it, that trying to science coat ideology, whether it be Darwinism or ID theory, is just a bad policy. In conclusion, by advocating that design is scientifically detectable, intelligent design theory continues to attract attention and funding, framing itself as a challenge to the materialistic worldview prevalent in our contemporary culture. Jaki warns, however, that such efforts often lead to further polarization. In the end, Jaki suggests a different cultural path, promoting a kind of docta ignorantia that respects the limits of human understanding in both science and theology. In this sense, Jaki would favor the some ID theorists' stated commitment to a kind of an open reason in both science and theology. And he would recommend that ID theorists not criticize proponents of the so-called theistic evolution, who are not theological accommodationists, but invitations to a circular approach that opens empirical science to the search for ultimate meaning and opening theology to earthly realities, which is really an incarnate theology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Alessandro. And now the last speaker of this first round is Professor Antonio Colombo from Politecnico di Milano, Italy, and the title of his talk, Stanley Jaki, A Fighter for Truth.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. This is a picture of Father Stanley Jaki. Father Jaki was born in Hungary on August 17, 1924, so 100 years ago. He was born in Europe. Was born in Europe, which is the sixth largest city of Hungary, near to the Slovakia border, and for all his life he was actually a monk of the abbacy of Pannonhalma, which is the main abbacy in Hungary, and you see a picture here, and which contains some of the oldest manuscript of the Hungarian languages. Okay. Before I enter in the seminary, the future Father Jaki carried out various activities, between them rowing, as you can see, and also he was a Boy Scout. And as a Boy Scout, he reached the status of Eagle Scout, which not every scout is able to reach. He had two brothers, and the three brothers, the Jaki brothers, made a common choice. They all frequented a secondary school in Europe kept by the Benedictine, and they all decided to become Benedictine monks. Here you can see all the three of them in seminary back in the year 40s of the last century. And while the middle one lived for all his life in Pannonhalma, the other one, Theodos, toured near Hungary, and the middle one, Stanley, lived almost all his life in the United States. At the end of his life as a seminarian, before being ordered, Father Jaki was sent to Rome to complete his studies. and that happened in 1947. In 1948 he was ordered a priest by the Benedictine Bishop of Assisi, Monsignor Giuseppe Placido Nicolini. What you see here is the papal blessing for the occasion, which was over which there was a portrait of the then Pope Pius XII. Father Jaki completed his studies in Rome in 1950 with a thesis written in French on the new trends in ecclesiology. The thesis was published in a book in 1957, and the book was reprinted in occasion of the Second Vatican Council in 1963. Of the book that was reviewed when it was published by the then future Cardinal Ratzinger. Cardinal Ratzinger, who met Father Jaki in a few occasions, said, "Oh, Father Jaki, your book, this Pendants, occupies a place of honor in my library." So it was an interesting review of the conception of the Church from the Council of Trento until the first half of the 20th century. The last statement from St. Augustine that concludes the book is meaningful for the general idea that Father Jaki had in life. And the translation is, "Hold then, most beloved, all with one mind to God the Father and to the Church as a mother, Mater Ecclesia." This love for the Church is one of the characteristics of Father Jaki. You see, Father Jaki wrote his thesis in French, Les tendances nouvelles de l'ecclésiologie, and he was expecting to be sent in Paris. He did not expect to go back to Hungary, because Hungary had a new constitution which was modeled on the Soviet constitution of 1936. That is the constitution made by Stalin. And between 1948 and 1950, the number of convents in Hungary went from 182 to 6. Panorama was one of the 6 because it was too important to be destroyed. So Father Jaki expected to be sent to France. Instead, he was commanded by his superior to go to the United States. And he arrived in New York on December 21, 1950. 1 week later, he was in this place, St. Vincent Seminary, which also had an adjoining school, and he was teaching theology in the seminary and was teaching French in the secondary school that was near the seminary. So Father Jaki was born in Hungary, did not return to Hungary. The first time he went back to Hungary was in 1964, and it was with an American passport. That is, he became an American citizen. So Father Jaki in this place, which is on the east coast of the state in Pennsylvania, started what was supposed to be a career as a teacher. It is he could have spent all his life as a teacher. One of his brothers actually did that. His older brother Zeno was the master of novices for all his life in Panorama. But he could not go on teaching because a stupid thing happened in his life. He was operated, he did an operation for asportation of tonsils, you know, which is an extremely trivial operation. But when he got this operation, he got 2 hemorrhages after it, and the net result of all this was that he remained almost voiceless for the following 10 years. That is, he should have been a teacher, but he could not speak, which is a kind of difficult condition for a teacher. So he had to give up the activity as a teacher, but he could continue studying, and he did just that. Also, already when he was a teacher, he was studying science through the works of divulgation of famous scientists who, apart from being a scientist, also wrote about things like relativity and whatever. So, in 1954, Jaki got a degree in science, in physics, and since he could not any longer teach, he decided to get a PhD, that is a master in physics. And he got it in 3 years, from 1954 to 1957. And one of his professors was this Rudolf Hertz, which is an Austrian person who was got the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1936 for the discovery of cosmic rays. So Father Jaki made his dissertation with the supervision of Victor S. And the result was an article that was signed by the 2 of them in a prestigious scientific review, the Journal of Geophysical Research. The title of the thesis is rather abstruse, a study of distribution of radon, thoron and their decay products above and below the ground. The thing may seem uninteresting, but it is not, because radon is actually the second cause of cancer after smoke. So it is important to know the effect of this material. Once he got the PhD, Father Jaki was ordered once more to move. And this time he moved on the west coast of the state, in California. He went to Portola Valley, which is a little bit under San Francisco, and with the other 6 brothers, which you see there, founded the Woodside Primary School, which is active today, still active. And since Father Jaki could not teach, he just made something on the administrative side of the school, and even was the driver of the school bus of the school. But in the same time, he was able to go on and study, because Portola Valley, which is in the Silicon Valley, is very close to the University of Princeton and to the University of Berkeley. And so he had a lot of excellent libraries in which he could study. In 1960, Father Jaki was ordered back to the east coast of the state, this time in Princeton. Princeton is one of the main universities in New Jersey and in the States. And there he was a visiting fellow from 1961 to 1963. But in that period also he made the research for his first major book. And he said that the idea for this first major book came to him descending the step of the post office of Princeton, which is also the place in which he came almost every day to get from a P.O. box his mail. And Father Jaki made a thesis which was experimental. That is, they measured the level of radon in basement and places like that. Below the ground means actually in basement. So Father Jaki was persuaded by his scientific activity that the science, exact science, has to do with measurement, with all what can be measured. So science has to do with everything, and in everything has to do with the measurable part of everything, but not for the rest. That is, you can measure the dimension of this desk, but you cannot really tell by the measurement what this desk is for. This importance of measurement can be expressed by another statement made by one of the scientists of the time, which is Eddington, which says the cleavage, the division between the scientific and the extra-scientific domain of experience is, I believe, is not a cleavage between the concrete and the transcendental. That is, that can be touched and that cannot be touched, but between the metrical and the not metrical. That is, between what can be measured and what cannot be measured. Just to make a simple example, the science cannot affirm and cannot deny what in theological term is the creation, because the science can get as close as it is able to the initial moment, to the Big Bang. There is a physics of the first 3 minutes of the universe. The physics is able to get there, but the physics is unable to say what caused the Big Bang, or what was before the Big Bang. So the physics has limitation. No. Yes. While Father Jaki was still preparing his book, he was asked by the dean of the faculty of the Seton Hall University. Seton Hall University is the Catholic University of New Jersey, to join the Department of Physics at Seton Hall. Father Jaki said yes, and basically since 1965 up to his death, he was there as a professor. Since, let us remember, he was still unable to really speak, he was asked 2 different things. The first thing was that should have kept a seminary once per week. A seminary has less need of speaking than regular teaching. And the second thing was that he should have gone on writing. And Father Jaki spoke of these things with the Latin expression, which is damnatus ad litteras. It means condemned to write, to literature. And he worked for the University of Citonon up to his death. This is his first book, which was published in 1966 by Chicago University Press, which is quite a prestigious publishing house. And on the cover, it is written what you can read on the right side of the slide. Physics has become the most powerful instrument at man's disposal, etc. And the question is, are its method and its insight equally relevant to other areas of human concern? And the answer is negative. But Father Jaki joked that the title of the book should have been The Irrelevance of Physics. But such a title could not be accepted by a publisher. So, in this book, Father Jaki examines the main worldview views about science. The organismic one, proper of the ancient Greece and Aristotle, the Newtonian one, that is the mechanistical one, proper of the Newton era, and the modern vision based on mathematics. And then goes on examining the relationship between physics and a few other arguments like biology, metaphysics, ethics, and theology. As a kind of prosecution of the book on the relevance, Father Jaki wrote a book about brain, mind, and computer. And for that book, he got the Leconte Louis Prize in 1970. Father Jaki was obviously very interested to the history of science, and reading about the history of science, he found the job of Pierre Duhem. Pierre Duhem was a French physicist and historian toward the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. He died in 1916. And he wrote a monumental book in 10 volumes, The Système du Monde, the system of the world. It is a history of cosmological doctrine from Plato to Copernicus. In this book, Duhem found that one of the three laws of Newton, the first one, the principle of inertia, was already present in a work of a 14th century French cleric, actually, Jean Buridan. So in this book there is Duhem was able to find that the principle of inertia had already been stated in the 14th century before becoming 3 centuries later one of the three law of motion of Newton. Father Jaki, with this book, Science and Creation, pose a question that is, positively, science was born in Europe, no doubt about it. Was born in Europe, in a Europe that still was Christian. And Father Jaki, in this Science and Creation, has a look to the main ancient civilization, Greeks, Hindu, Maya, Chinese, all of them, and ask the question, why science never was born there? And the answer is, is very more detailed that I am able to tell it to you here. But one of the reasons is that all this ancient view of the world had a cyclical vision of the time. There is a cycle in the time, in the sense that you have the alternation of the season that always came back after a year. And ancient Greek believe that there was a great year in which everything started again from scratch. And this was one of the reasons for which there was no reason to pursue science, to try to find scientific explanation. So, in this book, Father Jaki examined the stillbirth of science in all ancient culture, but in the European one, which goes back to Judeo-Christian origin. And in this other book, The Savior of Science, Father Jaki goes one step further, because Islam, Judaism and Christianism all share the idea that the world is not cyclical, the time is not cyclical, there is a beginning and there will eventually be an end to this world. But all these three religions could have been the birthplace of science. But as a matter of fact, science was born only in the Christian Middle Ages. And that is against common sense, because during the first Middle Ages, the works of Aristotle were not known in Europe. They started to be translated again from Greek or from Arab only after the year 2000. So Islam had for several centuries the monopoly of the works of Aristotle, and were unable to use them. The work of Buridan is actually a commentary on one of the works of Aristotle. Aristotle spoke of the laws of physics in his book of physics, and the commentary on physics of Buridan is the first work in which the conception of motion of Aristotle is discussed and criticized. And Islam could do that for 5 centuries and did not do it. Yeah. 2 minutes. Okay. So let us get quick. In 1987, Father Jaki got the Templeton Prize, which is a kind of Nobel Prize for religion, because there is no Nobel Prize for religion. And it was delivered by the then Duke of Edinburgh. And these are Templeton and his wife. In 1990, Father Jaki was called at the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Father Jaki translated 3 books, and he did it for ideological reason. I mean, just to show, and it can be seen in these 3 translations, that if you start from an a priori vision of life, your science will be dead. Father Jaki wrote a lot also about theology, and he founded a publishing house, Real View Book, which is active still today, and the soul of Real View Book is Dennis Musk. Apart from almost more than 50 books, Father Jaki published a number of booklets, 32 pages each, which deal with simple monographic argument, or are just a shorter version of his major books. For instance, Christ and Science is a short version of the Savior of Science we have seen before. He also wrote about basic themes of theology, and this has a short booklet, 80 pages yet, that deal with a number of basic problems of theology. And he was very interested in converts, and wrote a book about Chesterton, and wrote a book about the conversion of Sigrid Undset, the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1928. And he even went to visit in Norway the place of Sigrid Undset. So that picture of the tomb of Sigrid Undset was taken by him. And Father Jaki gave a lot of attention to Newman, and in particular to Newman that was giving attention to people who asked him advice for converting to Catholicism. And he basically said that Catholicism is the only true and safe religion. A number of his speeches were collected in books that reflect talk given in various places. And he liked the Portuguese proverb you see at in the top of this slide, that is God write straight along our crooked line. And also he never got tired of fighting. Militia, fighting is what is the life of the man over this earth. Okay. You can find a lot of information about him in this site, and I guess that's it. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much. We have just time for one or two short questions. Very short answer, please. For Professor Colombo.
It's for Professor Young.
Young, please.
since Francis Bacon and probably Galileo and people in those regions. The study of final causes is out of the reach of modern scientific method. So it is not only a question of probabilities or predictive power. The central issue is that inventions are out of reach of modern science, which is self-limited, as also Joseph Ratzinger remembers in his famous, magnificent conference in Barcelona.